So, IT in the world of AI and oil fields with today's amazing special guest, Rick Carlisle. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where we make AI simple, practical, and accessible for small business owners and leaders. Forget the complicated tech talk or expensive consultants. This is where you'll learn how to implement AI strategies that are easy to understand and can make a big impact for your business. The Artificial Intelligence Podcast is brought to you by Fraction AIO, the trusted partner for AI digital transformation. At Fraction AIO, we help small and medium-sized businesses boost revenue by eliminating time-wasting, non-revenue generating tasks that frustrate your team. With our custom AI bots, tools, and automations, we make it easy to shift your team's focus to the tasks that matter most, driving growth and results. We guide you through a smooth, seamless transition to AI, ensuring you avoid costly mistakes and invest in the tools that truly deliver value. Don't get left behind. Let Fraction AIO help you stay ahead in today's AI-driven world. Learn more and get started at fractionaio.com. Now, Rick, I'm excited to have you here because you've basically were born into technology and coding and understanding how things are built from COBOL. And even before then, you started playing around with programming as early as 5. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey and maybe how things have changed across your journey, how people have approached programming differently in technology from when you started to now?
Sure. So my father was one of the founders of the computer industry. He sold the first mainframe to the Census Bureau, helped create Fortran, COBOL. He used to laugh about the fact that when he was teaching Fortran to these kids, they would call him professor. So, I mean, 5 years old, he's teaching me Fortran. I wrote this magnificent program. It printed out the multiplication table. So I've been, before it was ever called IT, I was in it, and then as the years progressed, you went from writing down the code line by line on a coding paper, and then you go punch it into the punch cards, and then you take it and you load the deck and you run your program. And we got into COBOL with Grace Hopper. Now we actually write things in English language or whatever, and then it gets compiled into machine code. Now it's not punch cards anymore. And then Pascal and BASIC and C and C++ and Python and whatever all is out there now at this point. I mean, the things that you used to have to code by hand, like write this into this register, this address, write this to this port, or, you want to send something out to the printer. Well, write a stream of bytes to this particular port address. Then we had DLLs, then .NET, then, now wherever we're at now, now you've got AIs that, code this for me, and there it goes. Like I said, from my perspective, I'm looking at from the first mainframes that were built, and now my mobile phone has more power than the lunar lander.
Do you think that the way we approach technology has really changed dramatically in the last few years? Now that AI, what we call AI, is here, there's this kind of big excitement and this hype around what these tools can do, but they mostly solve problems that we've already been solving, just in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a big fan of the term artificial intelligence. It's not artificial. It's the intelligence we've had for decades. That, physics hasn't changed, chemistry hasn't changed, biology hasn't changed. We throw the term artificial on it. All that we're doing now is doing the things that we've done for decades. We just do it faster. What could take you a week to figure out, debug your program, whatever it is, now it's done in seconds. But the underlying intelligence, what's here, hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, it kind of seems like we're trying to outsource our intelligence. It's like, oh, let the AI do decisions for me. I don't read maps. Let the GPS tell me where to go. And we're starting to see this shift where people use AI to solve problems that we used to just ask someone or do by ourselves. Now you're asking AI simple math problems or directions or which restaurant to go to. Like these are problems I thought were already solved, like asking for a recipe. We've had cookbooks for, it feels like thousands of years. What I'm really curious about as well is like, you've worked on some really big projects and been in charge of really large oil fields and had a lot of these experiences. Have you seen, do large oil companies and gas companies, are they slow or fast to adapt to new technology? Are they always chasing the new next thing like a lot of people seem to be these days?
It all depends on the size of the company. I mean, the bigger the company is, the more inertia there is in all the infrastructure, and I mean internally employee infrastructure, right? You've got reservoir engineers, you've got geologists, you've got performance engineers that are looking to how big do I need to build the facility? Well, the geologists and the reservoir engineers tell me, hey, if I put a hole in the ground here, I'm going to get this much fluid out of it. I got to put that fluid somewhere. How big does the tank need to be? How big does the pipeline need to be? You know, and then you've got all the folks behind that, the management teams, the engineers, the automation analysts, all those people are there. They're writing the PLC programs. They don't particularly want to have their job go away, right? Then you've got the smaller folks, that don't have that inertia built in. That they'll readily pick up. Hey, it takes me a week to figure this stuff out. This much fluid comes from this part of the field. How big it takes, all that stuff for them, they don't have an entire geology department, an entire reservoir engineer department. They may bring in consultants or whatever, but they're the ones that are quick to pick it up and say, hey, I don't, physics is physics. If there's an AI model with physics and hydraulics built into it, and I can say, hey, I expect to produce 5,000 barrels a day, from these 3 wells, how big does my battery need to be? How big do my pipes need to be? Well, the physics is all there. So they're the folks that are picking up AI. I recently attended a conference, and one of the things they talked about was simply asset management. Where are the trucks? Service companies that say, hey, we have a customer that needs a vacuum truck, or it needs a pump truck, or needs a load of sand, needs a load of caliche to build a road. Before AI, and it was one of the interesting applications that I saw. A guy in the field gets on his phone. He calls the local rep. The local rep gets on his phone. He puts in a ticket. It goes into AI. It says, hey, I have a truck that's 3 miles down the road. I can get it to you in 10 minutes. And you click on the button and you say, hey, works for me. I agree. And then a work ticket goes out to the truck. The dispatcher gets a notice, say we're dispatching the truck. The invoice gets processed, and there were no people involved other than I need a truck. Hey, we got a truck. Truck will be there. Invoice is going to go out. So these small service firms, even some of the larger service firms at this point, it's like, hey, all that happened with a guy on his phone. It took about 10 minutes. How long would that have taken before?
Yeah, so It's really good the way it can help with agility or kind of repetitive processes. But how do you feel when it comes to things like divestment of oil fields or security? Like, can AI really fill those roles right now where it can handle the SCADA and watch the fields and it's going to detect if
No,
something's off track, or do we still need human in the loop?
you still need human in the loop. There are certainly applications, and one that I advocate for is you have historical alarm logs, historical data. Uh, and this is like one of my basic tasks at Joe Mill is every morning, look at the alarm logs. Hey, I'm getting this same alarm over and over again. Uh, we need to get the maintenance folks out there, right? We recently, you know, what I will call pseudo AI, we built a Power BI app. So where I would go through the alarm logs and I would say, hey, I've seen this alarm too many times. Now I pull up my Power BI app and it says, here's how many times you've got this alarm in the last week, last month, last 6 months. I can drill down and see, okay, did I get 6 of them on one day and then I only get one every other couple of weeks? Or, you know, am I getting one or two every other day? And then I can look at that and apply the I part, and say, hey, op supervisor, construction rep guy, this valve is sticking. I'm getting high level alarms on a vessel or tank. The pump is running. It's not pumping down the way it is. I pull up the historical trend. I look at the slope of the trend. AI could certainly do that. Feed it the data. And again, back to the basic parts of the I. Physics is physics, right? I mean, if the tank is filling up, but the production hasn't increased, then there's something going on. The pump's not pumping like it used to. We need pump maintenance. Those are certainly areas where AI could do, you know, what what used to take me a few hours. Now with the Power BI app takes me, uh, you know, 15 minutes. Where AI could look at that 24 hours a day and say, hey, it's my I going into the A.
Yeah, we're noticing that now we have this sudden massive need for more power, more power, more power for all of these AI data centers and AI here and AI there. Do you think that's going to lead to a shift in the perception of the oil industry and that this is going to be a long-term shift, that data centers are the future?
Absolutely. It's happening now. Uh, you know, West Texas is becoming uh, a data center hub because we have all this oil, we have all this natural gas. Yeah, we'd like to sell it on the open market, sell LNG, send it off to Europe or Asia or whatever. But we're pipeline constrained in a lot of cases. But if you put a data center and you build a power plant and you take that gas straight away, and all the electrical infrastructure that goes with it. Encore just announced they're bringing in, I don't know what they call it, ultra high voltage, like 760 kV or something, huge, huge power lines because of the data centers. It's not going to go away. I mean, it's like when the automobile came out, stables for horses weren't the problem. Gas stations were the problem. And again, you know, we talked about the migration from technology to technology. You know, the horse and buggy to the automobile to the the dirt road was fine for the horse and buggy. You need a paved road for the automobile. Well, now we have trucking. Now we need freeways, super highways. That analogy of transportation isn't any different for the energy markets. I mean, we get it out of the ground, it has to go somewhere for processing. So there's pipelines. The, you need a power plant. You need electrical transmission lines. In my mind, it's the same analogy, right? You went from horse, and now look what we got. Katy Freeway in Houston is 12 lanes wide, 16 lanes wide, something like that. Same thing with the electrical transmission. We have to put more down, has to go through to support the new technology.
So a lot of people don't really understand what it takes to keep an oil field running, what type of technology, what type of workers, what kind of processes are. What is the AI hype crowd really missing about how the industry actually operates day to day?
I think there's a lot of hype about certain kinds of analysis that you can do. I mean, I gave the example of an alarm analysis. I think they're missing the bigger picture. The I part, you can't impart, what my 40 plus years of experience into a model. You can't run a rig. I mean, you can't turn a wrench with AI. You still have to have guys putting holes in the ground. Yes, you can optimize how they put the holes in the ground with AI, but there's still somebody standing on the rig platform throwing the chain around the pipe. You can't AI that. You can't use AI to wire up a panel. You can't use AI to put a meter, on something. You can't use AI to change the packer, on a rod pump. I think Mike Rowe is real big on all this. At the end of the day, AI won't turn a wrench. It won't fix the plumbing. It won't change a fuse. Maybe it can help you determine how big a transformer should be quicker than normal, but it can't put the transformer in. It can't put the pole in to run the electrical lines. So there's a huge part of AI, that you simply can't apply it. So for the most part, as far as keeping an oil field running, there's not a lot of application for AI other than, like I said before, speed up some things that used to take longer to figure out. But somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning gets the call out and gets in their truck. One of the things I talk about with SCADA is, does the guy need to get in the truck? If he can turn on his laptop at home and he can get on SCADA and he can see the data and he can see what's going on, hey, my pump's not running, my tank's too high. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. If I got room in the tank till I can get there at 6, there's just no application for AI in that part of the oil fields.
Do you think we're going to experience like a generational gap in a lot of other
Oh,
industries?
absolutely. There's no doubt about it. When I was at Benedict Chevron, one of the things that I was a mentor for a lot of the young engineers coming up. And it's not that they don't know a lot. It's they don't know how to approach problems. And as folks like me age out, there's a gap in the middle. There's a lot of I could call it mid-level that, and it's not their fault, but they weren't exposed to some of the stuff. They were put in the pipeline. Okay, my first job as a manager, then I move up to management. Then I move up to management, and you're versed in the processes and the procedures of the corporation. But the guys out in the field, there aren't enough new people coming in to pick up where Bob Simpson calls us his gray hairs. It's you keep the gray hairs for as long as you possibly can keep the gray hairs, because that point in the middle, you know, there were a number of years where oil and gas, was frowned upon. We didn't get a lot of college graduates, 10 years ago that wanted to go into oil and gas. We got a lot of them now, and there's a lot of us old timers, but that part in the middle is missing.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I think that when I was in high school, I'm in my 40s now. Everyone was like, you have to go to college, you have to go to college, there's nothing else. And a lot of the trades kind of got ignored. And that's why we don't have enough plumbers, electricians, builders, all these jobs kind of got looked down on. And I'm not really sure why. Now it's kind of shifted back again because it's like, oh wait, we need infrastructure. Things don't build themselves. AI can't build its own data centers. So there is exactly like you're talking about this shift. And I do know we've kind of gone from a really anti-energy, we kind of thought everything would be solar by now, to suddenly nuclear is popular again because these data centers need so much power. And we're kind of seeing what happens when we don't have enough internal oil resources. We have to import and things happen. Do you think that this mindset will continue, or people will turn against oil again in the short term or in the long term?
Of course. I mean, you know, um, you can't call me a climate denier. I mean, the climate is changing. Whether or not that's entirely due because we were burning fossil fuels, or it's due because of your annual, whatever solar period there is. I mean, we've been hotter, we've been colder. Uh, I'm not a big fan of oh my God, that's the warmest year on record. Well, how far does the record go back? The Earth's been around quite a while. It was a lot hotter earlier. It was a lot colder later. But the bottom line is, you go back to before fossil fuels, what was civilization like? How did you heat your house? Where did the work day come from? Well, because it got dark at night, we had to stop. And it simply progressed from there. Energy density is the what drove fossil fuels. I can go chop down a tree and I can put the wood into the fireplace and it'll heat my home, but it's a lot of wood and it's a lot of trees. I can throw a barrel of oil in there, or a few thousand cubic feet of natural gas. I don't have to chop down any trees. You know, Without the energy density, you don't get the factories. Uh, you know, you don't get the fact that you walk to your, you go into a room, you flip the switch on, and the light turns on. Well, that's cool. But how big does a solar farm have to be to provide the same amount of energy as a single gas fired turbine in a power plant, compared to how big the solar panels do? How many wind farms do you need? And when it gets dark, well, God, you need batteries. When the wind doesn't blow, you need batteries. So every bit of renewable energy, I don't like to call it renewable, every bit of alternative energy we can get, is a good thing. But it's just not realistic to think that demand for oil and gas is going to go down anytime soon. I think the last prediction I saw was it's going to continue to increase until at least 2050. You know, so I might have gotten a little off topic there, but it's kind of one of my pet peeves that, hey, leave it in the ground. We don't need it. We don't need it. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. That rubber that puts sole on your shoe. Um, you know, where do you think that comes from?
Yeah. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I think that just in my lifetime, we've seen my whole life, everyone's been like, no more nuclear power. It's the worst. Oh, we need it for AI. Nuclear power is cool again. It's the fastest I've ever seen a shift in a perspective about something. And um, I've just always been so curious about that because I was born in 1980, right after we stopped building nuclear power plants. And I always thought Three Mile Island was this huge disaster like Chernobyl. And then I looked it up recently. I was like, am I missing something? Why do they always call it incident? And the reason they have to call it incident is because nobody died and nobody even got hurt. It's like
Well,
zero
yeah.
injuries is an incident. That's wild. And now suddenly people are rethinking it, and it's like so much of it's perception.
Well, and also in that regard, I mean, I was a nuclear reactor operator in the Navy, so uh, I come at it from a different perspective. To be a reactor operator in the Navy, the training you go through is equivalent to, uh, you could call it an associate's. It gets close to being a bachelor's degree in about a year's worth of training. But we learn it all from the physics from the ground up. This is what happens at the atomic level. This is how much energy is released. This is how much radiation is released. This is if you put if you take if you have beta radiation and you take a piece of paper, you block it. If you have alpha radiation, you put on some clothes and you block it. You know, it takes so much steel, so much water, so much this, so much that, so much thickness, and you cut it down, and then you know. Uh, we were doing maintenance in the shipyard, and I was literally laying on top of the reactor core, fixing the valve position indicator. And I got less radiation than I would with the chest x-ray or if I fly a lot. 3 Mile Island, we know exactly what happened. I was briefed completely on the sequence of events, everything that happened there, things that haven't been released to the public that I can't speak to, but nothing happened outside. Look at Fukushima. You know, people are moving back, and that was an incredible disaster. Chernobyl was poor design, bad decision making. They ignored warnings and alarms and said, man, no, we're just going to keep doing our testing here. But what was the end result? What's the result today? It was bad then, but nobody builds Chernobyl reactors anymore. Well, Russia has a few still out there, but you know, uh, we know how to build them. We know how to run them. We learned lessons, from 3 Mile Island. And look what Microsoft is just paying to bring the reactors at 3 Mile Island back online for their data centers.
Yeah, it seems like suddenly, now that we need more power, all the things that were naughty before are okay again. Um, and are you seeing when you post about artificial intelligence on LinkedIn and talk about it more and more, what kind of perception or reception do you get from people inside your industry?
It's in my industry, not so much. Again, for the reasons we talked about. Uh, what I do get feedback in is the general applications of AI. Uh, I, the large language models, they're great for search engines. I mean, I like when I go to Google, and I say, hey, ask a question, I get a nice, uh, nice language model answer. It tells me, hey, if you want to do some more research, go look over here. I think that's fantastic. But in my mind, and the feedback that I typically get is about agentic models. What you can do with an agentic agent. One of my posts was addressed to, for example, detecting breast cancer, right? So to detect breast cancer, you get an X-ray or a sonogram or whatever it is, but you get an image, right? And it's just an image. It's pixels with characteristics. What's the grayscale? Maybe it's color, and you have RGB associated with each, an RGB number associated with each pixel. But it's just an image, right? But you can feed those images, thousands upon thousands, into an agentic model and say, hey, this group of pixels with these characteristics, these are breast cancer. These are not. So you can have an agentic model that says that you feed an image in and it scans the whole model and it looks for those particular characteristics of maybe it's only 4 or 5 pixels square, with certain grayscale factors or RGB numbers associated with them. But it says, well, I've been told that's breast cancer. So that model, that agentic agent says, hey, I think I detected breast cancer. It doesn't know what to do after that. So again, the I part, right? It can scan all these things almost instantaneously, right? And then it can kick it up to another agent. The other agent says, oh, I know what to do if we think there's breast cancer. Schedule blood tests, do more testing, maybe a biopsy, whatever. So that agent says, I recommend these things happen. And then those things happen, and then you feed it to the next level, right? You, you feed it to the level of the cancer specialist who says, okay, now I have the result of these tests. I have the image. And then that one says, well, I recommend this course of treatment. Let's do surgery and remove the tissue. Let's do chemotherapy. Let's do whatever the therapeutic recommendations are. So you have these hierarchies of agentic agents that each is specialized at what it does. And at the end of the day, once you feed it to the chain, you get a diagnosis. You get a doctor that looks at it all and says, well, yeah, this all looks good. I agree with the recommendation, or I don't. That's, to me, is where the power of AI is.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that it's going to be an exciting future. And that kind of leads me to my final question, which is like, if a listener is running an IT or SCADA or operations at an oil and gas company, and they're trying to figure out where AI belongs in their stack, what's the first question they should be asking?
Well, that's a very good question. I think the first question they should be asking is, where does it help? Where does it make my job easier? Again, back to the A part. The A part is faster, faster, faster. If if there could be an agent built into SCADA that did exactly what I was talking about before, right? I got called out. I got a high tank level. So just 3 o'clock in the morning, the road's out. It's the middle of winter. It's a safer be to drive the road and save the plant, or am I going to get killed trying to get out there in the first place? An agent that said, AI that said, let me look at the pump trend. Okay, the pump is running, flow rates way below where it should be historically. Pressure's good, flow rate's bad. Let me go analyze the trend, look at the slope. What's our normal slope look like on the tank level when the pump is running? AI could certainly do that. And then tell the operator, your pump is bad. And then you feed it a little more information in the model. Well, what's the normal fill rate for the tank? Does it go up a foot an hour and I have a 24-foot tank and I'm at 16 feet? Well, shoot, that's a problem. It's a 24-foot tank and I'm at 2 feet. Well, then I probably don't need to get out on the road at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's the I part. So the A part, easily you could build that model and you could have that model run, maybe intercept the call out ahead of time, not call out unless there's a reason that somebody needs to get on the road. That's where I see AI being integrated with SCADA, process control. It's when I make my presentations, the first thing I talk about with SCADA is safety. If you can look at something remotely and not have to drive out there and take a look at it, you're safer. So anything where the application of AI makes things safer, I think that's the first priority. To the extent that AI can speed up things, like I talked about before, we're going to put 6 wells in. How many batteries do we need? How big does the pipeline need to be? Well, for the first well, we only need this, but for the 6th well or the 10th well, we need this. Well, you can't just change out a pipeline. If the pipeline side for 10 wells, when that first well runs, maybe we change the characteristics of the pump. Maybe we build that into the plan. When I put the 10th well in, we upsize the pump. Those are the kind of things that a person needs to do the calculations. Okay, calculate it for one pump, then calculate it for 3 wells, 6 wells, 8 wells. Throw that into a physics model with AI, and bang, here you go. You need 2 750-barrel tanks today. You're going to need 6. You're going to need 6 in 12 weeks, but your pipe's going to have to be 12 inches in order to handle when you finally get to the end of the line. That's where I see AI in the oil and gas industry. Like I said, it's not so much the I part. The I part is simple. It's physics. It's hydraulics. The A part is the speed. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. I think that's really helpful for a lot of people out there trying to figure out what they can and cannot do and kind of how to get into this world. And I love that you brought up safety first, because a lot of times it feels like we want to trade safety for efficiency. And I definitely agree with you that I'd rather use AI to add more layers of safety than to replace the existing layers. So this has been absolutely amazing, Rick. I appreciate you giving us so much of your time for today's amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and strategies on how to leverage AI to grow your business and achieve better results. In the meantime, if you're curious about how AI can boost your business's revenue, head over to artificialintelligencepod.com/calculator. Use our AI revenue calculator to discover the potential impact AI can have on your bottom line. It's quick, easy, and might just change the way you think about your business. While you're there, catch up on past episodes, leave a review, and check out our socials.